Can a single face haunt you from the past, only to reappear years later on an unfamiliar street? For Ricardo and his young son, this became a shocking reality. During an ordinary trip far from home, they saw a woman who was an exact replica of his deceased wife, a woman he had lost 2 years ago. It was impossible. Or was it? Listen until the end to find out, and please also let us know where you're listening from. Please do subscribe to our channel. Ricardo gripped the steering wheel, the hum of the highway a somber soundtrack to his thoughts. 2 years had passed since Juliana, his beloved wife, had been taken by cancer, leaving an aching void in his life and in the heart of their son Lucas. Now, on this long-anticipated trip to Curitiba, he hoped for a flicker of distraction, a moment of peace for them both. Lucas, absorbed in his tablet in the back seat, suddenly tugged at his father's shirt. "Papa, look! That lady, she looks like Mama!" Ricardo's heart lurched. Slowly, he turned his head towards Lucas's outstretched finger. By a cracked concrete wall, a woman sat, her hair disheveled, her clothes worn and soiled. But her face, Ricardo felt the blood drain from his own. It was an impossible mirror, a precise replica of Juliana in her final days. The world spun. How could this be? Juliana was gone, 2 years buried. The image of the woman, a haunting echo of his past, refused to leave Ricardo's mind. Once in Curitiba, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling. The very next day, at the old gas station, he inquired about her and learned her name was Renata, and that she appeared and disappeared like a stray cat. The name resonated with an unfamiliar ache. Ricardo couldn't ignore this. That same day, he contacted Daniel, a private detective, asking him to find the homeless Renata in Curitiba. He sent her a photo. A few days later, Daniel reported that Renata had been admitted to a public clinic 4 years ago with an infection, without documents, and a nurse noted she seemed to have escaped from some institution for vulnerable youth, now closed. Ricardo felt a chill. Pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Driven by desperation, Ricardo obtained contacts from the closed institution through Daniel. A few days later, Daniel provided him with the address and name of a former social worker, Ana Lucia Costa. Ricardo went alone, his heart pounding. Ana Lucia, meeting him, listened cautiously as he explained his search for Renata. Her face softened. "Renata, I remember her. She was brought to a municipal shelter around 15. It was a case of an abandoned infant with no surname. We registered her as Renata dos Santos." Ricardo, with trembling hands, showed Renata's photo. "That's her, without a doubt." Then he revealed the striking resemblance to his deceased wife. Ana Lucia was stunned. "Your wife's name was Juliana Oliveira? It doesn't make sense." She found a yellowed form, infant left anonymously in 1991, with a note about a sister, Marina Oliveira. Parents cited financial difficulties. Ricardo almost dropped his cup. He had found Juliana's twin. The truth was devastating. No one had ever mentioned it. Under the weight of the truth, Ricardo returned to Sao Paulo, to the home of Juliana's parents, Doña Lucia and São Francisco. Arriving unannounced, he directly asked if Juliana had a sister. São Francisco, barely audible, while Doña Lucia silently wept, confessed to the extreme poverty that forced them to give one of the twins up for adoption. They intended for the separation to be temporary, but when they tried to find her later, the orphanage had already closed, and the girl disappeared. Ricardo, overcome with indignation, demanded an explanation as to why they had hidden this from Juliana. São Francisco, with tears, replied that shame and fear had kept them silent, believing they were protecting their daughter from pain. When Juliana grew up, met him, and was happy, they decided that recalling this would bring more harm than good. Ricardo shook his head. "It's not too late. Her sister is alive, and she has a right to know the truth." A bewildered Doña Lucia retrieved a small wooden box containing 2 identical baby shoes. "These were Juliana's," she said. "We bought 2 pairs, 1 for each. We kept them, hoping one day to return them to her sister." Ricardo took the tiny shoes, feeling a lump in his throat. This was the final heartbreaking piece of the puzzle. Ricardo returned to Curitiba with the box in his hands, determined to find Renata and reveal the truth to her. He found her at her usual spot by the bus stop. "Renata," he began, "I know why you look like Juliana. I learned the truth." He gently explained about the twin sisters, their abandonment, and their parents' secret. Renata responded with a bitter laugh, disbelieving him and asserting that she was no one and they threw her away. Ricardo showed the tiny shoes from the box, explaining they were bought for both twins, proof that her mother hadn't forgotten her. Renata, holding back tears, insisted she was just someone people ignored. When Ricardo offered help, saying she was part of his life and Lucas's, she asked, "Why are you doing this? Out of pity?" Ricardo replied that he felt a connection and needed to know the truth. Exhausted from running, Renata reluctantly agreed, saying, "If I agree, it doesn't mean I trust you. It means I'm tired of running." They sat in silence, forming a fragile thread of a possible future. Ricardo gave Renata time, then returned with a backpack of necessities to show she was important. Though Renata warily asked if he was trying to buy her, Ricardo assured her of his sincerity, and she accepted a clean jacket. He suggested visiting Abrigo Nova Vida, a supportive shelter. To his surprise, Renata agreed. The abrigo proved warm and welcoming, unlike her previous experience. Director Cynthia showed her around. Despite lingering wariness, Renata admitted it wasn't so bad after all, a small but significant victory. Renata agreed to return to Abrigo Nova Vida and go to the doctor. Ricardo scheduled her at Clínica Bienestar, ensuring a respectful reception. Renata was nervous, but Ricardo reassured her. Dr. Pedro conducted the examination, and Renata, though she flinched at the blood draw, was surprised by his gentle manner. She admitted she thought it would be worse, and it was strange but pleasant. In the car, hearing an old song, Renata recalled how Juliana used to love it. She smiled faintly, saying, "I guess I would too, if I had my own room." Ricardo promised that one day she would have her own room. Renata entered Abrigo Nova Vida without hesitation. She longed to be seen as a person. 2 days later, Renata sent Ricardo a short message, "Come." He rushed to Abrigo Nova Vida. Renata was waiting for him in the garden. They sat in silence until she began to share her story. She recounted a vivid dream of a girl identical to her, but happy and well-groomed. She described her desperate escape from the shelter at 16, surviving on the streets, the kindness of an old man who died, and how she was called Vermin. Then she revealed the most painful truth. At 17, alone and scared, she gave birth to a child in a hospital but was forced to give him up for adoption. "I never saw him again. I don't even know if he's alive." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm telling you this because for the first time, I feel like someone is truly listening." Ricardo took her hand. "I'm not as strong as you think," she whispered. "No one is strong all the time," he replied. Ricardo assured her she deserved everything and that he would be there. Renata confessed she didn't want to return to the street. "Then don't," Ricardo said. "Stay. We'll figure it out one day at a time." 2 days later, Ricardo arrived at Abrigo Nova Vida with a sealed envelope. Renata was having tea. Cynthia, understanding the moment's importance, discreetly left. Ricardo offered Renata a DNA test to confirm her relation to Juliana. Renata froze, her gaze distant. She hesitated, fearing disappointment, but Ricardo promised, "We'll face it together." 2 hours later, a saliva sample was taken at a specialized clinic. 5 days later, Ricardo received a message. Results ready. 99.999% genetic compatibility confirmed between the two profiles. He called Renata, and after a brief silence, she agreed to his visit. When he arrived, she was waiting, her gaze firm. "Is it true?" she asked. "Yes," Ricardo confirmed. Renata crossed her arms, unsure how to accept this new truth. "I have a sister. I had one, forever." Tears welled, but she held them back. "She never knew about me, did she?" "No," Ricardo admitted. "Her parents thought it was for the best." A bitter laugh escaped her. "For whose best?" Her eyes were red but dry. "I grew up thinking something was wrong with me, that I was broken, invisible. Now I know, it wasn't me who was invisible. I was simply erased." Ricardo stepped closer. "No one will erase you ever again." She nodded, tears finally falling. "I don't know what comes next, how to live a normal life." "We'll figure it out," Ricardo said, taking her hand. "Together." The news of Renata's arrival and her uncanny resemblance to Juliana reached Livia, Juliana's sister, and Ricardo's unspoken business leader. Fearing for her position, Livia secretly gathered compromising information on Renata. She confronted Ricardo, questioning Renata's background and accusing her of exploitation. Ricardo calmly confirmed Renata's kinship via a DNA test and sharply rejected Livia's accusations. Leaving the meeting soon, Livia orchestrated a false accusation of theft against Renata at a pharmacy, forcing Ricardo to intervene. He recognized Livia's ruthlessness and vowed to protect Renata from her attacks. Despite Livia's schemes, Renata's life slowly improved. She battled inner demons daily, taking manicure courses and learning to manage finances. Lucas affectionately called her Aunt Renata. and Ricardo remained her steadfast support. Livia, however, persisted, commissioning a defamatory article portraying Renata as a suspicious opportunist. Devastated, Renata disappeared for hours until Ricardo found her. In tears, she admitted feeling betrayed, but Ricardo assured her it was Livia's doing, not her fault. Later, inspired by other women at Abrigo Nova Vida, Renata reluctantly participated in a beauty day. As she gave manicures, her hands steadied, and her confidence blossomed. A journalist from a reputable newspaper, seeking to correct the previous injustice, interviewed Renata. For the first time, Renata shared her full story, from abandonment to the DNA test and Livia's malicious article. She emphasized her self-reliance, stating Ricardo merely extended a hand. The result, the article garnered immense public support, proving truth, when given a voice, always prevails. Undeterred, Livia launched her final, most aggressive attack. 2 weeks later, Ricardo received a legal summons, a lawsuit from Livia, alleging that Renata threatened the family's assets and Lucas's inheritance, and demanding she be legally declared an outsider. Ricardo's hands trembled with rage, but Renata, who also received a summons, calmly declared her readiness to fight. Together with a reliable lawyer, they built their case, gathering evidence, DNA, parents' confessions, social workers' testimony, and Renata's video testimony. On the day of the hearing where Ricardo and Renata arrived together, Livia looked confident. Her lawyer presented Renata as a manipulative opportunist. However, Ricardo's lawyer presented a shocking new document, anonymous evidence of Livia's embezzlement of company funds over the past 2 years. Ricardo was stunned, and Livia paled, her composure collapsing. The judge, maintaining her composure, announced that the case would be transferred to the prosecutor's office. Renata watched without visible triumph, but with deep understanding. The judge's decision was swift. Livia's lawsuit was dismissed. Renata was officially recognized as Juliana's sister, and Livia would face charges for fraud and abuse of power. Outside the courtroom, surrounded by reporters, Renata, no longer shrinking, took the microphone. "I am not a scandal. I am a person. And no one will erase me again." Ricardo tightly squeezed her hand, and they walked out, not as victim and hero, but as two survivors, looking to the future. The city was the same, but Renata was transformed. With her legal validation, she walked with a new sense of dignity. Ricardo took an indefinite leave, focusing on Lucas and a simpler life. Their first family trip to a tranquil Sao Paulo retreat brought Renata profound peace. She spent hours simply gazing at stars, a novelty for someone who had never seen them without city lights. Lucas joyfully taught her to swim, their shared laughter marking a new chapter. Back in Curitiba, Renata's confidence blossomed. She completed her manicure course and, with Ricardo's help, opened Renata Estética e Unhas. At the opening, Lucas proudly read a handwritten note. "We found you on the street, but now the street will never find you again." Renata wept with joy. That evening, she expressed how precious her salon was to Ricardo. He then surprised her with an airline ticket to Florianopolis, a place where the sky meets the sea, for her to witness its beauty. She took his hand, the silence filled with unspoken promise. Later, Renata, still holding cherished mementos from her past, confided in Ricardo her desire to find her son. Despite her fears of rejection, Ricardo supported the search. Weeks later, Daniel, the detective, found him. Gabriel, 23, an intern at Ricardo's own company in Curitiba. Ricardo and Renata arranged a meeting. Renata tearfully revealed she was his birth mother, explaining her desperate circumstances at 17 that forced her to give him up, but assuring him she never forgot him. Gabriel, shocked, also wept. Hours later in Renata's apartment, Gabriel shared stories of his adoptive parents in college. When Lucas arrived, Ricardo explained their new family member. Lucas exclaimed, "So, I have a brother now?" Gabriel laughed, confirming, "Yes, a stepbrother." "Cool." Later that evening, Renata looked out her kitchen window. The city hummed, but within the apartment, a profound peace settled. Ricardo stood beside her. "You have everything back now, don't you?" he murmured. "Not everything," she corrected, leaning her head on his shoulder, "but the most important things." "Yes." Ricardo gently kissed her forehead. "What's next for us?" "Whatever we choose, together," she replied. "You love me?" he asked. "I do," she affirmed, her eyes meeting his. "Then let's go somewhere, even just for a day." Ricardo chuckled. "Only if we take Lucas, and now Gabriel too." "Agreed," she smiled and kissed him deeply. In that simple kitchen, Surrounded by the echoes of children's laughter and a past finally at peace with the present, love had found its true home. What do you think of today's story? What would you do if you saw someone you had lost a while ago alive and walking? Please let us know in the comments below.